everybody doing? Everybody
Good,
cool?
how are you?
So, y'all based in New Orleans or y'all coming from all down?
Ohio. Well, neither of us are from Ohio, but we're representing Ohio.
Right on.
Arizona.
Alright, I'm from what?
Arizona.
Right on.
Here at the Bengals, not Iowa.
Yeah, just gonna wait a little bit, you know, see, how many people come through. It was a little hard for us to find a place. It's like even find a place like to register. And it's like, I am a Tulane student, but it's like I've never been to this building.
Yeah. What are you studying?
I'm doing my PhD in Latin American Studies.
Oh, cool.
Just like focusing on race, representation, music. You know, they don't have music per se in the programs. It's like I am a musician, professional musician from like that's my trade. That's like what I have my education from. I'm also from Latin America.
What do you play?
I'm a guitarist.
I'm a composer. I'm in a band.
Mr. LeBlanc is like also guitarist, singer, banjo player, composer, arranger. It's like been playing with like most of the most notorious musicians in town. It's just like this project today, this presentation is about this work to be together. And that'll come set for y'all. First time in New Orleans?
Yeah, it is.
Not mine. Went to an amazing wedding here once.
Saw like 3 weddings on this website.
Really?
Yes. They were so sweet. So romantic.
Want to grab a chance?
I'm on E. Brown.
You want us to put the CD in here?
I'll get one of each. I think I have 3. Do you make your slide?
Yeah.
Great.
Beautiful, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just like this whole thing of like, I started doing this not with the pretension of becoming the project it became. It's like, just went way above what I was expecting to be. You know, and as a musician and a researcher, you know, there's a lot of things that I do that just like refers me back to, I don't know, the modes of operation that I grew up with in Brazil. You know, it's like, what you call, just like respecting elders and approaching culture more in a sense of like being part of like your integral self instead of just like being a commodity, which is very often is what happens in all this because of like the way people deal with folks that do culture, the way people actually do that, like deal with culture itself. So just like the idea is just to reconnect with my teacher. He like taught me some like essentials about like being a musician, about being an entertainer, and also somebody who represents your culture. You know, it's like I met him in 2012, and like 10 years later, I am part of like the fabric, as he said, you know, the fabric of music in the city. And just like he's about to retire, which he did. You know, he retired and kind of like went unnoticed, like how like a giant like this, you know, just like ends his career as a musician, goes to something else, and nobody in the city says it. So the project was more like, hey man, you know, let's not make this exit of yours, you know, the music business be so uneventful. You know, just like we started doing a project together. It became an album, like 200 gigabytes worth of like film,
Oh my goodness.
bunch of like photos that like I took in the process, and just like a much stronger relationship between the mentor and the mentee.
Awesome.
So I'm just gonna, you know, like give the people like the 10 minutes after the time, you know, and since they have us like from 1:30 all the way up to 4, I think so.
I think
3.
it's 3:30.
3:30.
Yeah, 1:33. say, because that's the next one starts at 3:30.
Oh, so it's still great.
It's a long time,
Yeah.
Yeah, we got time still.
It's a long time. And this music that you're listening to right now is one of Mr. LeBlanc's.
I was about to ask.
And one thing that I learned from him, that's like music in itself, can be, like I said, a commodity. You can just like use that to entertain people, which is mostly what people do. And you listen to this stuff, like you might create a connection, but if you are on the stage playing to people, some people might have a connection with music, but some people don't, and they just definitely lose. So a lot of the stuff that I do, like as a performer, like on my professional career as a musician, once again it goes back, to the things that he told me about in terms of like, how you deal with like an audience that doesn't care about what you play. How do you deal with an audience that actually cares about what you play? How you are political but not offensive. You're aggressive but not, people's faces. There's like a lot of learning in that, for sure. And this record, like you want to talk about the record? What this record represents?
Oh, okay. Hello everybody. This CD, Those Who Have Ears, I guess you can tell by the name, Those Who Have Ears, it's biblical, but the way it came about was Katrina, right? Moved back to New Orleans from Katrina, and if you live long enough, you expect to bury your parents, so my father died and I buried him, but unexpectedly, and one of the hardest things to do is to bury one of your kids, and New Orleans has like a very high violent crime murder rate. My son got killed when he was 24 years old, so it was about 9 months after I buried my dad, and got through that. I'm starting to get very good at writing obituaries. And then about 7 months after that, my mom passed, so for about 2 or 3 years, I didn't even play any music at all.
Yeah.
I just was like trying to figure out what's going on, why. And then it dawned on me I have to play music with Fats Domino and Alan Toussaint, all people from New Orleans. I played with Sun Ra. I think I'm the only person on earth who's ever recorded with Sun Ra and Preservation Hall. So that seems like that's the whole scope, from inception to end of conception. But then it dawned on me I played jazz, R&B, rock, all kind of music. I never played any inspirational devotional music, so that's where this came from, and that was the first thing I recorded after that event of things. And I started using music that I guess a lot of people wouldn't consider spiritual music, but I found a way to twist it and make messages come out of it from the lyrics or from the way that I would perform the song.
And once again, you're just connecting the sonic experience of playing a song to like the message that it brings forward. And I think the 10 minutes that I gave people is almost over. Just like 4 minutes to then, but it's like if you have questions before you start, we get to talk to you and then we start with it. And if you're staying in town, till Sunday, make sure you patronize some of the local businesses that are owned by Black folk.
Yeah.
It's like, and go to music performances that are not too much on the bourbon circuit, but on the other clubs, there are other parts of town that have music that is not as, commercial on your face.
Do you have a suggestion of venues?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can go down to Frenchman Street. Some of the Frenchman Street venues, they are classic, such as Snug Harbor and Spotted Cat. They usually have music, like Spotted Cat starts at 2 o'clock and goes all the way up to 2 a.m.
That's the first one?
Spotted Cat.
What's the other one?
Snug Harbor.
Spotted Cat, Snug Harbor.
Yeah.
Oh.
And these are all Frenchman?
Yeah, on Frenchman Street.
Frenchman Street.
So these two venues, they are the venues that you find like less commercial, more, like, I don't know, earthy sometimes. But it's like, there's like some references, and then you have other places, you can go to the Ace Hotel, they have like a couple of music series that happen there that are interesting and very commercial. And, just make sure you go on the Livewire, WWOZ. They have the entire listing of music like for the week, basically. So it's like Livewire, WWOZ. You can just find everything that people were playing from like Monday through Monday. It's like the entire month of scheduling.
What black-owned places still is? Kermit Ruffin still has mother-in-law lounge?
He still has it. I don't know how often there's entertainment there, and there's one called Sweet Lorraine's. But sorry to say, the city has sort of blocked out black-owned clubs. People come to town, and for so long they'll be in the French Quarter or on Frenchman Street, and they come up to me and ask me, "Where's our people? Where's our music?" And the way it is now, you have to get zoned for live entertainment. They don't let you have a music venue in what they call residential district. And so where they used to have clubs next door to people's houses all over the city,
They're so nice.
yeah, they had them in every neighborhood, Well, now they're trying to direct all of the dollars to go to the French Quarter or to Oak Street or Freshman Street. So as to your question, few and far between.
I have a follow-up question. You said Livewire. What is Livewire?
Livewire is like it's part of the local radio
The
station.
radio station is
WWOZ.
WWOZ and Livewire.
So they have the
music calendar.
It's popular like around the country, I think, using Livewire. Yeah.
Oh, it's an app?
I think it might be.
Radio station, WWZ. They have all the
Okay.
local recipients.
But like in terms of food, you can go to Sweet Soul Food. It's a place that's just like all vegan soul food out in the 7th Ward. You have
What's the name of it?
Sweet Soul Food.
Okay.
You have Duke Chasey's.
Dookie Chase.
Duke Chasey's. Yeah. You can go to that one. It's like this traditional New Orleans food. I don't really go out to eat much, but it's like those are the two I would recommend. So we reached the 140 mark, so I'm gonna start the presentation. Whomever comes through, we catch it up on the main road. So let me just bring this one down a bit. Y'all mind if we have the music roll? Is that cool? Y'all
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
bring it lower.
Yes.
Like that.
Perfect.
Cool.
I appreciate you introducing me, but he never introduced himself. This is the gentleman who, the reason that I'm here, Geovane Santos. As he said, in 2011 or something like that, he contacted me. He's from Brazil, his home country, and he said that he would like to come and do a residency with me and study music. So I said, fine, great. And he didn't get the residency from the government there, but he went in his pocket and came and took a music lesson with me. As soon as he pulled out the guitar and started playing, he's from Brazil, right? Guitar is the national instrument of Brazil. He's playing all his fingers playing up. I said, man, I can't teach you anything. But anytime you want to come around, we could just hang in there. So he had it in his mind that he wanted to play like me, learn jazz and New Orleans music. So he moved here. after one lesson, and then he
That
got his
must have been some
master's. Well, Nicholas Payton, I don't know if you know him, a trumpet player, he told me that the way he gives lessons is he gives a student enough stuff to last for a year or two, you know, before you're ready for another lesson after that sinks in, you know, get it under your fingers. But I'm not like that. But anyway, since then, he's got his master's from the University of New Orleans, and now he's working on his doctoral degree here at Tulane. So Geovane Santos is the presenter who got all this together.
Giovanni, da onde que tu és?
Sou de BH.
Ah,
So, thank you for the introduction. Like I said, like I said, we are Mr. LeBlanc, and I am Geovane Santos. We are both musicians. We are black men in America. You know, he's from here, I'm from Brazil. Kind of like transplanted here and kind of like making my ways around on non-exploitative ways. And as I break down a little bit, you know, like I am a musician, he's also a musician. And my background is just like this classical music and this like very narrow conception of what music's supposed to sound like and what is considered good and bad. You know, it's just like being trained in the conservatory mindset, you know, just like I came to grow up thinking that popular music and music of actually like my country, my background is Afro-Brazilian, was lesser than, even though I grew up listening to it and just like having it around me on family functions, on everywhere, the radio, the TV, or what have you. And coming here for the first time in 2012 is what basically sparked all what you're gonna see in this presentation and actually like my career path as a musician and also as a scholar, was that I came here with this blind idea that I wanted to become a jazz musician without actually focusing first on what I felt like was representative of my own culture. You know, because like, why focus in Brazil? Because, you know, there's a lot of people doing Brazilian music. You know, I want to be the hip cat and just like do things that nobody does over here. So I was playing all this like non-Brazilian music and classical music as well. And then I got into like playing gypsy jazz music, which is like this kind of swing music. And then when I moved here, actually before moving here, coming here in 2012 and meeting Mr. LeBlanc, like he said, I wanted to take a lesson from him because I've seen him play. It's like, man, it's like, he plays guitar in ways I've never really seen, never really experienced seeing him play, anybody playing guitar the way he played. So I asked him, like, can I take a lesson? Sure, you know, just come to my house tomorrow at 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock in the morning, like, the next day it's like 6:30, I'm like standing in front of his house with the guitar and just like waiting to be like 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock. Dude, you got here early, huh? Like, yeah, I told you 7 o'clock, but like, no, all this time. We usually like, we're a little late, but it's like, it's fine, get in. So it's like, got in, and just like, you want a coffee, you want something? It's like, no, man, I'm good. Just like, so wait a minute, I'm just gonna fix some stuff up and start talking. So I grabbed the guitar, I played everything I knew on the classical repertoire. You know, you just like, show me what you got. I can't really teach you without you letting me know how to approach you. Grab my guitar, play all the classical stuff I had at my fingers. Nice. Like, what else? Played all the jazz stuff I had been learning and working on. Interesting. So you said you're from Brazil, you play classical music, I saw you playing classical music. You said you were trying to learn jazz, I saw you playing jazz. But like, I didn't see you playing any Brazilian songs. Like, what's that about? So I had one song I had worked on, so that was the song I played, and after that, like, you have any else? No. So here's the lesson. After like 3 or 4 hours just hanging out, playing all this stuff, and he's just like, filming the stuff I'm playing, just saying, dude, this is it. The lesson was, before you try to focus on somebody else's culture, you know, try to focus on your culture. And then, after you have that figured out, you blend all the things you know, you're gonna have like your own brand music itself. So this was 2012. I went back to Brazil really mad. It's like, man, it's like I'm trying to like learn how to play jazz, and this dude telling me that I need to play Brazilian music. So it just started a quest of just like questioning my own personality as an Afro-Brazilian, somebody that was trying to like learn this new language without the access to the source, you know, because I was trying to learn that in Brazil, and we don't have a lot of people doing this kind of stuff. And then I started basically doing what he said. I started like focusing and researching Brazilian music and my roots and everything related to that. And with that in mind, you know, everything kind of shifted. You know, I started like blending Brazilian music with jazz and classical music. So the next time I saw him, like a few years later, when I actually moved back to, not moved back, when I moved to the United States in 2015, I already had some of the stuff that he had told me 3 years before, kind of like figured out. And that, I believe, you know, is when this kind of started, not as a project in itself, but the relationship between the mentor and the mentee, because being part of the music scene in New Orleans goes a lot of like you actually showing your face and playing music and just like doing the what they call the sit-ins, you know, just like come to somebody's gig and ask to play, so you get heard and you get noticed. But a lot of my first opportunities, they came from recommendations. You know, I would come to his gig, you know, like weekly to just like see him play and just like meet other people, and he would just like start hooking me up with people, you know, just like, you know, like, you should go check this person out, you should go check this person out, and just like on a regular basis. And I always ask him like, can I take a lesson from you? I was like, I don't have anything to teach you, man. Like, you play everything. So the, you know, this relationship between the elder and the young one, you know, was something that like started being built solidly back then. So moving forward to this, what I thought would be just like we recording an album together, and just like me paying tribute and respect to my mentor, just became a larger than life project. You know, like I said earlier, I have 200 and some change gigabytes worth of film that we filmed over like the course of a year of like hanging out as the pandemic started and he announced his retirement. I have a bunch of photos that I took of him, you know, just for him to have like some more recent headshots and some like more professional photo shoot stuff. And not knowing how to make a documentary, he kind of made a documentary. You know, with his help and his permission, you know, I just compiled all the stuff that we recorded, and that's what came to become, you know, like a pilot of the thing I called the Griot series. And what is the Griot series? It is a, you know, it's a series in which I bring in musicians I have contact with in like on a mentor-mentee kind of setup, in which we just have casual conversations, which was, you know, more or less the way in which I learned a lot of things from Mr. LeBlanc. You know, he talks about his own story, his own history, he kind of placed himself in the history of New Orleans and the history of Black music in New Orleans and all of that. And the project itself, you know, consists of, you know, like a bunch of interviews that I conduct with the artists. I provide them with a photo shoot. We record an album together, and you know, along the way, there's also, you know, some like help with technology, help with social media if they need the help with social media. We have also, you know, things like this, you know, just like bring the elder to basically talk to the people and say by himself what's this up, you know, what's it about. So the word griot, you know, as you can see on the page, is a word that Mr. LeBlanc already used to determine himself as, you know, like he has an album that's sitting on the table right there. That's like, it's called the 7th ward griot, and the city in itself is divided in wards. You know, like you want to explain to them like what the wards are and the reason why you call itself the 7th ward griot?
Oh, well, I guess in other cities, districts are wait, not the word starts with a C, but, you know, just divisions in the city. The city is divided into what we call wards. The ninth ward, if you remember, is the part of New Orleans that flooded after Katrina, the lower ninth ward. And it is actually the lowest elevated part of the city. Doing a project with John O'Neill called Environmental Racism, I did find out that around the world, the darker people's skin is, the more the area they live in as toxic waste and lower elevation and just disadvantages like that. So the lower ninth ward, by being the lowest elevation, is where many black people owned houses and everything after Katrina. I lived in the 7th ward, and the 7th ward is very peculiar as well because going back to antebellum New Orleans, and New Orleans was the center of the United States, I guess. We could say it was the capital because by it being the port right here, the Mississippi, you could bring goods to that and go up the Mississippi and then distribute them in each direction toward the east or west. They didn't have the canals that they built from New York that opened up so that they were able to go.
The Erie.
The Erie Canal, okay, and that's when they say, well, we don't have to travel all the way down there. We could just go to New York and then distribute goods that way. But New Orleans had people from all over the world coming here, and the slave owners had this tradition. They decided that a woman 1/4 black was the most desirable that you could find. They call them quadroons, right? And 1/4 black blood, because in Louisiana, our bloodlines were so mixed that they actually had to pass laws to say what black was here. And that's when they said that 1/16 black blood would mean that you were black. And once you had to go through like 4 generations before you could filter black out of your bloodline. But anyway, the 7th ward, that's what I'm supposed to be talking about, is where the slave owners or put up their mistresses, these quadroon women, these free people of color. In fact, every year they used to have a ball called a quadroon ball, where the mothers would get their daughters ready in hopes that one of the rich white plantation owners would come and choose her and set her up in a house in the 7th ward. And so most of the people living in the 7th ward were very fair-skinned. Some of them were even we call passant blanc. They could pass for white in given situations. And so the 7th ward is where I grew up. I had kind of a hard time there because I kind of stuck out, but that's what it is. That's where I'm from. So the 7th ward, Griot, I managed to have a lot of stories to tell about being brought up there.
And once again, as you can see, the definition of what the griot is, you know, it's like they have this thing of like placing the griot in the Western African society as like the person who carries the stories, like is the archive of the living history. That's the thing that's a phrase that I learned from Mr. LeBlanc. Like, who is the griot? It's like is a storyteller, you know. So kind of reframing that, kind of taking it away from like that group, you know, where the word comes from, where it's situated, bringing it to the daily lives, you know, people tell stories. You know, in the context of New Orleans, you have so many people like Mr. LeBlanc that don't he considered himself a griot, but you have many people that don't, you know, and they just like retain so much knowledge about, you know, like the social history of racism in the city, the social racism of oppression, of, you know, like, you know, the life of a lot of black masculine Indians, for example, is something that's just like, is cast as, you know, like, it could be a documentary. Each person could just like be built out of that, you know. So that's, you know, and just like he just casually told you the story, every time I would meet up with him, you know, be it, you know, like after his gig, or, you know, I just like bump into him in the street, you know, me going to one gig and he going to other, you always have stories like that. And the reason why I called the project the Griot series is just inspired by him. It's just like, and like I said, I didn't know this program was gonna become what it became. And just like that, you know, we have all of that, and I have kind of like continuation with a couple of artists that we also do some stuff on that sense.
You know, I kind of define things myself from first person experiences, how I make my definitions, and the storyteller. The difference between a storyteller and a liar. There's not much of a difference, right? You know, you're making up something, and it could be a lie or it could be a story. But the way I see it is, the liar is trying to cover something up and try to hide some truth. But a storyteller is trying to uncover something and let everybody see the truth in it. And so they may use the same tactics by, you know, making up a tale about, you know, this and exaggeration and all the different things that go into it. But it's the intent, whether you're trying to cover up a truth or to uncover a truth. And that's what the storyteller is, in my mind.
And as I've said before, you know, the whole concept of mentorship just brings us back to the idea of the Griot being a teacher, you know, being somebody who carries tradition and passes it on. And in order for you to have somebody to pass it on, you have, at first, you know, to have the Griot. And the reason why we put this together, you know, like I said, you know, Mr. LeBlanc just said, like, after, what, 60 years career? Or was it like 50 years?
About 55.
55 years of professional, like, career as a musician. He announces his retirement. It's just like nobody's talking about it. Nobody's like is bringing up, you know, like the fact that like we about to lose the presence of a major musician in the city.
They don't believe I'm going to retire. in New Orleans, musicians play until their last breath, you know. So nobody believes that I'm never going to walk on a stage again. We'll show.
You know, so like the whole mentorship stuff, you know, it's like, man, it's like, we gotta do something. So in the city, they have a couple of institutions that give grants out. And one of the grants that they give is the community partnership program. And that is devoted for Black people of color, indigenous people. And this grant in itself, you know, it's like, can be for you to record an album, can be for you to like refurbish a museum, can be for you to like build a Mardi Gras masked Indian suit. It's like a bunch of different things. You know? So like, why not apply for that and just like put Mr. LeBlanc in the showcase and have an opportunity to hang out with him and like take the lessons he never taught me. You know? So like I hung out with him for a year, and it was like the beginning of the pandemic. I just called him. It's like, man, just like, how you doing? It's like, everything cool with you? Yeah, man, like I'm cool, you know, but ready to move to the country. Ready to move to the country? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, man, I told you I was gonna retire. Like, it's coming to fruition. And you know, like I just had maybe 4 or 5 months before he moved to the country, and made it a little hard for us to just like communicate in terms of like getting together to like play music or even talk or do the interviews and things. And at first he said, man, like, I don't want to play. You know, I can do this project with you and all. You know, I sing, but I'm not gonna touch this. So we hung out for like 5 months. Just like I would get to his place, we would just like talk and have the interviews and all. Just talking, just like learning and just like taping all the process in itself. And then like late May, he said, dude, I think I'm ready to play. I want to play. So we prepped from May up to June, early July, got to the studio, 3 days we recorded the album that you're gonna see, we're gonna talk about it a little bit too. But once again, first time I met him in 2012, we're here in 2022, kind of like closing the 10-year cycle of all the things that like I learned and the way I carry myself in the city as, you know, as a performer, as an entertainer, as a researcher and as, you know, like a more conscious person about like the history of the city, you know, my own history, and just bringing back the concept, you know, that like people like all LeBlanc, you know, they should be always, you know, just like elevated in terms of like the cultural legacy that they carry with themselves. You know? And they have this thing about New Orleans, you know, in terms of like the tourism industry and all like the commercialization of black culture and black culture bearers and black people and black spaces. That, you know, like, oh, come to New Orleans, come to experience all like the beautiful music, you know, the mecca of music and the birthplace of jazz and all the blah 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 that they have for you, but they don't have means in which to support the livelihood of folks like Mr. LeBlanc. You know, there are a lot of musicians, you know, that they end up on like the nursing homes because, you know, they don't have the means in which, you know, to keep up with the expenses, and, you know, life gets hard, and then you have gentrification, and then you have, you know, like families trying to take away the elderly's properties and stuff. So all of that is part of the kind of like the block, you know. So that's something, you know, the reason why I feel honored to have worked with him is that he came out of retirement to like tell his stories in front of the camera and to play with me, you know. And it's like just like, woo. You know, it's like really, really, really honored. And back then, you know, like when I met him, like I had long dreads, and then, you know, the dreads started getting shorter. Same thing with him, just like, no more dreads. You know, and like I've been saying, you know, the Griot series and just kind of like the intro text or the mission or whatever you can interpret that for. You know, like this is just a way in which to just not a solution for the problem, but a little help in terms of like bringing forward the idea of, you know, like giving praise and giving a space to talk and just like just bolstering these people's legacies, you know. Because like I said, you know, like the city loves to say that it's for the culture, but it's like it's for the culture, you know. And there's a lot of that, a lot. And in the process, you know, I get him paid for participating in that. We get, you know, the CD and sort of like a documentary, and that's more or less what the focus of the next rendition of the project would be. Just like give the people opportunity to play, the opportunity to sing their truth, and, you know, give them some archive.
This is an elaborate, long play, just so he could play with me, just so he could all of this, just so that we can do gigs together. You're pretty slick. Long end gag.
Yes, indeed. You know, so, and like the academic needs to talk, you know, I'm part of the community engaged partnership, not partnership, scholarship program, fellowship program here at Tulane through the Mellon Foundation. And they asked us to, like, if you're gonna present our community engaged partnership, please put so I put the community engaged partnership in there just in terms of like what I could frame within the scope of the project, what it is, community engaged partnership. You know, it's like there's the whole thing of like data equity. You know, everything that I produce is not mine. You know, it's like I have like a hard drive that like by the end of this, as soon as like I release the 4-part documentary that we made together is gonna have all of that. You know, just like I don't own that. There's this stuff. Same thing with the masters for the CD. If you want to release that under a different name, different cover set, or even like remix it down the road, you can do that too, because like all the data is, you know, like the post-retirement planning for creation and publication of modern jazz education material. That's something that's like, as a musician who, like he said, you know, he played from traditional jazz, you know, it's like music that's like trying to replicate what the original music of New Orleans jazz was, from playing, you know, with this folks to playing with Sun Ra, which is like it's is the top contemporary jazz figure in the world. Just like there's a lot of things that happen between these two, and a lot of different languages that he has to know and be capable of, like, on the spot, like, present in order for you to actually make this gig and that gig, you know. And there are a lot of different gigs in the middle that he also does, because he's a very versatile player. And it's like, I'm always like intrigued, because we have not only Tulane, but we also have like a couple other universities in town that praise themselves for, no, we are in New Orleans, we have a jazz program, oh, we're changing the jazz program to like Black American music. It's like, you're talking about all of that, but you still don't have folks like him or people that look like us, you know, Black folk teaching a jazz program, you know, in New Orleans. You know, and all the students that you have in the programs, they don't look like us either. You know, all white students, and for you to be part of the program at Tulane, it's like it's exorbitant amount of money that you have to pay. You know, you have something to say?
Yeah, about that. I don't mean to keep interrupting
No,
you, but
I told you, man.
okay, they have Tulane, Loyola, University of New Orleans. You can get a degree in jazz at either one of those universities. We have 3 Black universities, Xavier, Dillard, and Southern in New Orleans, SUNO. You cannot get a degree in jazz at any Black university. Made me start wondering what that's about. And Michael White, clarinet player, Dr. Michael White, people think his doctorate is in music, but it's actually in French. I'm not Spanish, yeah. His doctorate is in Spanish, but he's playing on it, you know. Anyway, it's one of the most intelligent things I ever heard him say. He said that that's because Black people feel that to be educated, you're supposed to know white stuff. They don't think that knowing Black stuff is being educated, so they don't even have jazz programs at the Black universities, because they figure to be a competent musician, they have to know how to play Tchaikovsky, you know, and so it's just butting in. Every time you get to a spot, I'll just wave my hand and jump in along the way.
And I told him, like, this presentation is about me, it's about him, you know. And I said, like, whenever you have to interject, to intercept, interrupt, just jump in, you know. So the creation of materials, you know, and it's also part of the, like, the, what's the name of the word, the continuation, even like the sustainability of doing projects like this project specifically, was to, as we finished the grant cycle, I sat with him and said, like, man, you know a lot. I think I can help you, like, get into the university round. Just like, there was the whole, like, COVID stuff, and like I didn't travel a lot. I was like, okay, so let's plan differently. And I've been in communication with Carl, like I said, for 10 years now. And over the years, whenever I bump into him, like, hey man, like, have you heard of this? He would show me some, like, really killer stuff, like, damn. We'll go home and, like, this is fire. Next time, same thing. He always showing, like, different stuff he's working on. And there were times I wasn't in this place, just like learning some music or like playing or talking to him. He would just like come up with like a bunch of like printed music. It's like, what's this? He's like, this is a method book I'm working on. Method book you're working on. So I come to him, like, you wanna write a grant to publish this stuff? Gee, man, like, you're bringing me back to music, man. Like, I told you I'm gonna retire. So man, it's like, it's not even about you playing music. It's about you, like, putting your knowledge out there and being quoted for it, you know. So I helped him write a grant for the same program that I wrote the grant for, and we got it. You know, and he's about to release the first volume of the book. You want to talk about the book?
It's a guitar method book. You know what? It's starting off, I guess, with the same way other guitar books go, but I think I'm making it the name of it is World of Chords. And as I was thinking about it, I'm thinking, wow, they have books like the universal method for saxophone. You know, why am I limiting mine to world? You know? but then after I started writing it, I thought about maybe I should just say it's the neighborhood chords. Because what I'd like to do is, instead of teaching students how to make all these big chords, you know, like making the harmonies so big and everything, I would like to show them that all of these big chords are just little, what I call nuggets, just these little building blocks. And as you put them together and on top of each other, the big chords become, you know, they just materialize out of nowhere. And so just using stuff that you already know how to play, a simple C chord or a D chord, I don't know how many of you are musicians, but you know, if you take that C chord, a C, E, G, and put an A in the bass, then that's like an A minor 7, you know. Or if you put if you put a B flat in the bass, then C is the 9, E is the raised 11, G is the 13. So that's a B flat 13 with a raised 11. But really, it's still just a C chord, you know, the C, E, G chord, just sitting on top of the other things. So that's how I'd like to present it. That music doesn't really have to be that complex. You could just take these small building blocks and learn how to juxtapose them against each other.
You know, so there you go. A lot of it's a compendium of knowledge. And once again, the city doesn't do shit to support folks like him. And then it's like they have the African saying of whenever an elder dies, a whole library goes with him or her with them. It's just like as simple as that, you know, like all the knowledge, even there were a lot of things that he told me on this in this project, and even outside of the project, and things that sometimes kind of intercept something that somebody else told me about, a specific musician or a specific club that no longer exists, a specific part of town. All of these things, you know, they're still very important, but yet, you know, we have a city that talks about its culture bearers, but, you know. So moving forward, you know, have the multimedia technology consulting assistance, and that was something that also came forward with the whole concept of ageism that the pandemic brought us. You have a new generation of musicians receiving the stipend from the government, the unemployment money. And what did they buy with the unemployment money? You know, because a lot of these musicians, they have they come from wealth, but yet, you know, they're collecting unemployment, and they invested that money from unemployment on technology to be connected to the internet, and they play gigs online so you can collect money, you know, just playing remotely. A lot of the folks, you know, and I had conversations with Mr. LeBlanc and a lot of other people from his generation, they were kind of segregated out of this situation of being capable of accessing this realm of either the capability of teaching online, you know, which is something that he started doing a little time in the pandemic, or play the so-called remote gigs, unless you go to somewhere and you have somebody have a setup so you can do that. So we got a high definition camera, and also a way in which you can connect the guitar to the computer, so he can just he can record himself, or he can zoom in anywhere in the world. He can, you know, oh, I have an idea, just connect it to the computer and play, and can also process that. So that's the spark, you know, and that's I think, you know, my side as a younger person, somebody that's has a little bit of knowledge in terms of the technology and stuff, just giving back the so-called community engaged scholarship, it's just a little portion of hey man, you teach me all this stuff, but have this, you know, this contribution. And the grant writing, I already talked about that, and most of all, you know, the creation of this archival material is going to last, it's going to outlive me, him, and it's gonna be part of like his family's documents too. It's like it's out in the world, and it's gonna be in his possession as well. So I frame this as like community engaged scholarship, but it's like it's the relationship I have with Mr. LeBlanc is just like it goes way beyond just like oh, you know, he's just like a researcher like trying to like make a buck doing the documentaries. Like, you know, it's like it's more of this like this community, you know, and this like the Griot lives in a society in which people respect the person of the Griot, and you have folks, you know, that sit and listen. You know, it doesn't mean that you're gonna become a Griot, but you like receiving the knowledge from the source. And there's this whole concept also of like passing on the baton. You know, like he said, oh man, like you playing all this stuff, you know, like you carrying your way around, you know, like doing these things, you know, I really appreciate that. But it's like the same way he will start some concepts of music, you know, that he brings with him, you know, like I will start some concepts of music that like sometimes start to sometimes like I will go to his gig and just like be in the corner, just like, yeah, just like observing, just like by being the presence of the person, you're already learning. So like some of the stuff he knows, I have it with me, and I can't, you know, unless somebody kill me or get the like Alzheimer's, you can take that from me. And it's like I will pass that on. And my way of like reading society and culture in New Orleans also is shaped by, you know, by the things that I learned from folks like him.
You're not saying the things that you give, though, because it made me realize something, the way that Geovane came and put this project together with, I say it for the ulterior motives that he had, but it's a lot deeper than just him wanting to be around me and learn what I know. And I met another young lady when I went to Canada named Carla Samuel, and she talked to me for a while. It turned out she was from Baton Rouge, but she's living in Canada now. And she just called me one day and said, look, I'm doing a Wikipedia page on you because you're supposed to have one. And I'm like, huh? What's Wikipedia? You know? And so she just called and checked a few facts, and then she did that the same way that he's doing, taking things that I've taught to guitar students here in New Orleans for decades and saying, well, no, you should put them in a book and teach them to anybody in the world who wants to learn those things, you know. And what it made me realize is I kind of dropped the ball when I was coming up. When the young guys started with this rap and hip hop stuff, I didn't say, okay, son, you're interested in music? Let me show you what you can do with that. And I didn't do it. I just was like, man, that's not music, man. You know, that's a record hop. You're just spinning records. That's, you know, you got it. To this day, I still get offended when I look at the music awards and the people winning the music awards don't have any instruments, so they're not singing or nothing. They're just reciting the spoken word. You know, to me, that's not necessarily music, but I fault myself now because I should have said, okay, let me take a part in that and show you what I think music is and how I think music can be a part of that, what that needs to have in order to even be defined as music. You know, melody, harmony, and rhythm are the three elements of music. So I listen to the radio these days and I hear a lot of rhythm, and I hear some melody every once in a while. Okay, I guess that's a melody. Okay, but very little harmony. So it's like we're dealing with one third of what music is, and saying that that's really what we're doing now is it's almost like tribal. It's a chant and a rhythm. It's a rhythmic chant, and so we've broken music down to that level. I guess we're going to start over and build it, but what he made me see is the same way that he's coming and helping me to grasp with the internet and technology. Yeah, I missed the opportunity to help the young brothers who were coming to me saying, I got a record, I got a song, and I listen to it, and I'm like, so sing it. You know, that was it. What? You didn't do nothing but talk and spit on my microphone. You know, that wasn't a song, but I see now, and I apologize to your generation. I really do.
He has a tune on YouTube. You can look it up. You know, like the dollar bill.
Yeah, E pluribus unum.
It's like, it's spoken word.
Spoken word. That's what it is. Spoken
You know,
word.
so like, here's you know, a few of the photos that I took of him on the process. You know, just like the ones you see over here were like the process of the interviews. You know, like this was like the one of them. You know, like he sat on the drum kit and was showing me some stuff on the drum kit. You know, like some of the stuff he was talking about. He has like some beehives and things. And the ones further out there are the photos from his farm out in Mississippi. You know, his dog. You know, it's like you can't see the land. You know, but it's like this spot where he lives now. So here's the like one of the parts of the project. You know, like the Griot series will have the photo shoot. We'll have like the recording of the CD. This is his house, by the way. The Salmon Court, and you know, and the documentary, like, which is, you know, the compilation of interviews put together on a film. You know, and if you want to listen to the music before we leave, you know, like Mr. Carl brought some of the CDs, you know, like the one that we just released and some of the ones that he released in the past. If you want to contribute to his farm, more than welcome to grab on his music and bring with you. Like I said, in like the film, and since we have some time, if y'all want to watch part of the film, we can play some of it.
Yeah.
Sure.
We still didn't made it available, but definitely play some part of the film.
Is the film available online now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sneak peek.
Yeah.
Can I say this to you, Mr. LeBlanc?
Yes.
I just found it really interesting that when you were talking about poets and spoken word artists, about like dropping the ball or whatever. I'm a poet and spoken word artist, so my eyebrows went up. But what I found is that artists like yourself can play an integral part with the poets and spoken word artists from the standpoint that you can play behind them or play alongside them as they're, you know, espousing their words or whatever. Because you play the guitar, right?
Yes.
And
I
the
don't know.
banjo, and the keys, and the flute,
Yeah.
and the baritone horn.
I don't know if you know of a lady by the name of Lynette Sutler. She was a guitarist from Philadelphia.
She just passed away.
She just passed away. And she used to teach guitar to elders at a senior citizen center. And I was a facilitator for the poets, poet elders at that place. And when we would have our concerts, she would play along with the poets. And it was a really beautiful blend.
It is.
And especially if it's a young person, they get to feel your vibe, you know, while they're vibing. I mean, young is relative to me now because I'm 70.
Everybody's young to us.
But I just think that it's really interesting that you picked the ball back up.
I have played with poets. I don't know if you know John O'Neill, Carol B. But we used to open up for the Last Poets actually for a few years, and Kalamu Yasalam, his group, the Word Band. You know, so I've done a few things with poets, and that's what I thought that rap was more than music. I thought it was spoken word and poetry. You know, and I'm just learning how to
Differentiate.
to understand that they think it's music. You know, you got to explain it to me more.
So here we go. And by the way, the project's funded by the Renewal Center for the Gulf South, which is an institution that that basically focuses on the cultures of the Gulf and the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation. If you've heard of the New Orleans Jazz Fest, they're the same people that funded the Jazz Fest.
I was trying to turn out the lights, but
I'd like to say hello to everybody. What's up? Dog is hot, huh? Yeah. If you want to move the chairs into the shaded area, that'd be cool. Anyway, y'all want to sit. But just if you want to move the chairs under this shaded area, I'm cool with that. My name is Carl LeBlanc, and I'm very happy, very fortunate to be here today, performing with a young man who I met several years ago, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. 10? Wow, 10 years ago. I received a phone call from a young man in Brazil, and he was calling to ask me, could he take guitar lessons with me to come do a residency here in New Orleans to study with me. And I'm like, well, sure, that would be great, you know. But he didn't get the residency from the school or government, whoever it was. But he went in his pocket and came to New Orleans and took one lesson with me. And the next thing I knew, he said, I want to move to New Orleans. And he's been here ever since. So I'm very fortunate and happy to be playing with Mr. Geovane Santos here today. Did we click track? You think so? I mean, in that case, we need headphones. Huh? Yeah. You what? You know, I have a tendency to be fluid with my meter. Yeah, maybe we better.
That means you can't wear your hat.
The headphones gotta go under the hat. Let's just try it once to see.
Okay.
One without or with?
Without, let's just go.
Yeah.
Hang on.
No, we got without it.
Yeah, but I need to hit record.
Okay.
All right, you guys are ready. Go ahead. Oh, wait a minute. Let me turn off the AC.
Yeah, so, what I do here, a little.
Just for the record, we're trying out, it just ended up to be the part that we use on the record.
Those are pretty strong, I mean, that's somewhere.
Yeah, I got one in there and one in there. But the condenser on. I can't just take out the condenser. I gotta take out the whole units and put them all over the set. Yeah, so that's
You got the man talking about his air conditioners in the movie. That's part of the movie.
So that E is always minor?
Yeah, when we do the bridge? Yeah.
we're rolling.
You. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. the name of that piece was Plyrine Days. I wrote it, and it's about the little sugar candies that we used to eat when we were growing up. You probably call them pralines, but they had a old lady walking around with a basket with ones made out of coconuts, some made out of pecan, and she used to call them plyrines. And everybody I know calls them plyrines. Okay, it's rolling already? It's rolling. Okay. My name is Carl LeBlanc. I'm a New Orleanian and musician.
How was like your beginning with the instrument or even music as a language for you?
Okay, music education. When I finally did get the guitar, I went to a little place right down the street, Crescent City Music, and started taking guitar lessons from the Mel Bay book. And they had me playing Little Brown Jug and all these songs, and I realized, wow, this is a little bit more work than I thought. So I put the guitar under the bed for maybe a year, and one of the guys around the corner who was in high school, Joseph S. Clark, his name was Kenneth Scott, he came and asked my mother, could I play with their band that weekend? And they started teaching me James Brown and Otis Redding songs, and went to a few gigs, a long stint of gigs at a club called Wonderful Boys Club. And there was no turning back then. You know, here I am, 11, 12 years old and sitting in the club every night, this big hat pulled over my head so nobody could see I was a little boy. And watching grown men and women drinking, smoking, dancing, and doing what grown men and women do, So, and not only that, I'm going to school, in 6th, 7th grade with $25, $30 in my pocket on Monday morning, that was wow, my potentials for everybody.
That's cool, man. But it's a lot of experience, like playing with the older musicians and like absorbing that like from the people that know how to play instead of just like doing stuff from a book, right?
Right. The book learning didn't come until later in college. I was very fortunate because there was sort of a brotherhood here where the older musicians didn't have a problem with taking a young musician and letting him work stuff out, showing him different songs and different approaches to his instrument. And people like Fred Kemp and Ed Frank and, there's so many, I don't even know James Rivers, Oliver Cornyn. These people took me as a young man and just sat down, gave me some time and direction over the instrument. When I first joined the Musicians Union, they said list all the instruments you can play. And I put drums, organ, piano, bass, and then I guess the men were just shaking their heads, those older men, because I didn't really realize what they meant, could they call you for a performance on these instruments? Were you capable of doing that? And I just thought, what instrument do you mess around with, I guess.
So were your parents musicians?
No. My father had a sister who played the violin, but I never really met her. They moved to California early, so, and then she didn't really continue with it, although her sons played for a minute. I think one of them may still be playing bass. But no, nobody in my family played music.
What led you to pick up music?
Well, I lived in a spot where music was going on all around me all the time, in the neighborhood and also just in the city, parades passing from my door. And then just seeing this new music at the time, rock and heavy rock, and what that was doing to people. I like the energy that you were able to get and give, and the guitar during that period was the instrument. The climax of every song was a screaming guitar solo, so put that with the Beatles and what they showed what a guitar can do, and then with Hendrix and what he showed what a guitar can do. There was no choice, that's what I had to play.
So you didn't tell us what neighborhood you're from. You said that you lived in a very musical, very cultural neighborhood. What neighborhood?
The neighborhood you came to just now, the 7th Ward, right here in New Orleans. I stay on London Avenue, which is like the gate to the 7th Ward. Now it's named AP2 Avenue, but everybody had to ride past here, and at any time of the day and night, you could catch 4 or 5 musicians just in here practicing, playing. As a matter of fact, my son's mother had to tell me she had 3 daughters and they moved in. And then she had to tell me one day, you know, you can't just let anybody who come by here with an instrument, a bottle of wine or a bag of weed just come in. You got these girls here, you can't come in here all times of day and night. I think that was after one night when Julius and I came from the gig. We were in the bathroom back there. They were all in here sleeping, and we were in the back playing as soft as we could in the bathroom after a gig. I loved it so much.
You want to talk about like who AP Turo is? I don't know.
AP Turo?
Yeah.
AP Turo was a civil rights lawyer, okay, and the street, London Avenue that I grew up on has been named after him now. AP Turo, he helped during the desegregation of New Orleans and a lot of the civil rights movement, but the even more profound in him was Homer Plessy, who the case Plessy versus Ferguson, the first racial, I guess, case to make our way to the Supreme Court. You know, and it was because Homer Plessy, he was a fair-skinned Negro, and so the NAACP made a plan for him to ride in the white car of a train. And at the train station, when they came and they checked his ticket, they found he was black, and they took him to jail then. And so today, I have affiliation with that because the case Ferguson, Plessy versus Ferguson, was going on then. Well, both of their descendants, Keith Plessy, who is like a nephew, a grandnephew of Homer Plessy, lived right around the corner from me, and Mimi Ferguson, who is a descendant of the white man, they have gotten together. So what the case was, fighting against each other back then, Plessy versus Ferguson, now they have the Plessy Ferguson Foundation, and they are working together to help rebuild. And AP Turo Park is one of the things that they helped to get. They've gotten the national plaque in different places. Matter of fact, the place where Homer Plessy was arrested, they have the plaque of the United States there, and they have the street, Press Street, which is, it was the Press Street is where the train line was going down. They changed the name of that to Homer Plessy Way. So they go around the United States now giving workshops and talking about the work that they are doing. The Plessy Ferguson Foundation.
Yeah. So each chapter, you know, like the whole thing was like almost 2 hours, so I chopped it down to like an hour and 40, and then I chopped it down again to like an hour and 20 minutes. And it was still very long because a lot of talking and not like a documentary director.
Talking about that, the temperature of that conditioner and everything, I guess that's involved.
You know, not director. And like I said, I wasn't expecting this project to just take the proportion it took, you know, but like now we have this document, and like the final cut will still come out, you know, but you have like a snippet of what the thing's gonna be about, you know, just like just him telling stories about himself, the history of the music business and culture and entertainment in New Orleans, why the tourism industry is so exploitative and destructive in the city. You know, talking about some landmarks such as the Claiborne Corridor. I don't know if you know about the Claiborne Corridor, but it's like, you want to talk a little bit about the Claiborne Corridor?
Claiborne Avenue is one of the only streets that run straight through New Orleans. It goes all the way from the lower 9th Ward all the way up to Jefferson Parish. It is Claiborne Avenue. And where I grew up, all down to the 9th Ward, all uptown, Claiborne Avenue had black businesses on each side of the street. Tailors, you know, cleaners, barbershops, all these butchers, shoemakers, all of this on both sides of the street. And in the middle of the street was a neutral ground, what they call in other cities the median, in between the left and the up and down streets, and all these oak trees, 100-year-old oak trees growing on the neutral ground. And so for Mardi Gras, there was a time when I remember that Mardi Gras wasn't really for black people. The only part we played in Mardi Gras was flambeau carriers. You would see these at night, in the night parades, these young black men twirling these buckets of kerosene, and that's what lit up the streets as they were walking down the streets. And you could see the burns on their arms because people would throw pennies and watch them fight and over and spill the kerosene down their arms while they fight to pick up the coins. That was entertainment. But for Mardi Gras, what we would do was the black people would all set up tables up and down Claiborne Street, and you could just walk up and down and stop by anybody's table, get a piece of chicken, a soft drink, a can of beer, a hot dog, just all up and down Claiborne Avenue. Well, I think it was in the late 50s, maybe by 1960, they were trying to decide whether they should rebuild the railway system in America or put up the interstate. And so the General Motors and the oil companies lobbied for the interstate. So they put the interstate up, and of course the street that they chose to tear up and put the interstate through the city was Claiborne Avenue, right? And so all of those businesses all went under, and not only that, that whole cultural thing of where we spent our Mardi Gras with the brass bands and the Mardi Gras Indians, skeletons just walking up and down that street, not even worrying about going to look at floats and fake stuff because we had enough real stuff, you know, to celebrate. But all of that got pushed under until the Tourism Commission figured, well, wow, we can market that. And so New Orleans jazz and the food and everything now is where we used to get tourists here. As a matter of fact, it hurts me we have these jazz funerals, right? I understand now if you have a convention, you can pay to have a fake funeral. They have a plastic casket, and they go through and they have the whole ceremony as if, I thought that was kind of sacrilegious, you know. Yeah. They're playing these spiritual songs and everything over a plaque, but that's because they are marketing a part of our tradition, the jazz funeral. Now they have a mock funeral, and the conventioneers love it. You know. Oh, one other thing, I was playing in the French Quarter one time, and a guy came up to me and said, "Boy, I had so much gumbo. I've eaten gumbo at every restaurant here in the French Quarter." I told him, "And you probably haven't had a real bowl of gumbo yet." Because if you just had the gumbo here in the French Quarter at the restaurants, you got to go by somebody's house and taste how their mama cook it.
Yeah, that's history for you right there. You know, could be playing the whole thing. You know, it's just like just gets long and long. So this is gonna be the next part of the series. You know, that's like what the project they would call it. Like I didn't know it was gonna become all of this. So that was kind of like a pilot project. You know, it was just focused on him. So the next one is gonna be 1-in-1. So I'm gonna feature, you know, like 3 musicians that I have contact with. You know, George Blackman was the person who was talking about the air conditioning in that footage. His sister, Doris Blackman, and Baba Juju Child. So Gio is a jazz singer. He's also an audio engineer. He's battling multiple myeloma right now, just like a very aggressive form of cancer. Doris Blackman, if you've seen videos of New Orleans and people playing in the street, the woman with the violin and a person playing the guitar, just like has millions of views on YouTube. That's the person who's playing guitar with the violinist. It's like Doris and Tanya. And Juju Child is a blues guitarist, played with some zydeco acts in town. So like I said, you know, it's just we get together, we talk about their lives and their placement in history. They talk their truth. We play some music together. We do a photo shoot, and then release an album and kind of like documentary. So Griot series is, you know, it's called LeBlanc. If you want to ask any questions, we're here to talk to you till the end of the presentation. Thank you.
I have a question, comment. So thank you. It's great information. I love seeing history, legacy being uplifted and shared, because it's too little sung in that regular, everyday world. And just being able to lift up this living legend is deeply appreciative from me. So thank you for lifting him up. And thank you for allowing them young men to capture you and raise you up. So one thing I have, so I'm not a musician, but I like music. So I have the chord, the world of chords.
Yes.
So is that applicable to the banjo? Because he said that you play the banjo. So I have a banjo. I don't play, but I want to.
How many strings on your banjo?
5.
5. Okay, the 5-string banjo. The banjo is an African instrument.
Yes,
You know,
that's
banjo. It was, the slaves just took the hoop off of any size barrel that they could find, and they put a skin on it, neck and some strings, and so the banjo doesn't have any family like you have the violin and the viola and the cello and the bass violin. The banjo has all different kinds. How big a barrel was, they took the hoop off of it. And so they have banjos that are small. I have one called a banjolin. It's like a mandolin, but it's the size of a banjo. And there's the jokalele, that's like a ukulele sized banjo. You know, but the 5-string banjo is basically used for country or mountain music, bluegrass, you know, hillbilly music. That's the 5-string with that little short string on the side.
Right.
The drum that just down, the one that keeps ringing no matter what you play, the little short string. In jazz, we use the 4-string or the tenor banjo. And they also used it like doing vaudeville and right after ragtime Broadway shows. In fact, Duke Ellington even had the instrument in his band, in the early band. He had the 4-string banjo. But as to your question, no, this book won't be good for banjo at all, because it's just talking about fingerings on the guitar. Okay.
But maybe the next book will be the banjo.
Well, it sounds like I need to buy a new banjo. So, never really learned on the one I have, so I'll go to that.
Exchange.
Exchange, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's another style of music, another language, because on that banjo you do finger picking. You know, they call it the claw hammer style, and you do the finger picking. And in jazz, it's more strumming. It's like a rhythmic instrument. Because in New Orleans jazz, obviously they couldn't bring a piano around everywhere they were going, and the guitar wasn't loud enough to be heard over the horns and drums. But the banjo has sort of a piercing sound. And so the banjo became the chord instrument in traditional New Orleans jazz because of its piercing sort of approach, and it's also part of the rhythm section. That the head of it is the skin of a drum. So it's like you're playing the drum rhythm, but also you have chords going on, some harmony and rhythm in this one instrument.
Well, thank you for that. That was more than I really expected from that answer. So yeah, I'll do my research now.
Don't start me talking, I'll tell you all that I know.
And then for the young man, have you made connections where you can start what's become a documentary into the festival circuit, the cinema,
It's a whole block, man. It's just like I said,
it's a lot.
I didn't have the expectation that this was just gonna like become what it is. And I was talking to Mr. Eric Waters, you know Eric Waters?
Yes.
He's just like, man, you should do a photo exhibit too. It's like,
Well, I know people, they do a festival. I do my work out of Baltimore, and so they have it's a Baltimore International Black Film Festival. So this crosses so many pieces of that. You're being from Brazil, this being the cradle of jazz music, and just like it would be a perfect fit for that festival. So it just passed, but hey, you're still editing, so maybe we'll see.
yeah.
Thank you.
That's something to think about, you know. It's like I haven't thought about these things because, like I said, he started growing and all the stuff I'm using. Like if you see the camera that's on the back in there, that's the camera that I filmed most of the stuff. It's like it's not super like high tech and all. Like I didn't have like the lavalier microphone and stuff, but like I said, I didn't think it was gonna become this. So it's a thing. It's just like a learning curve, and I'm very fortunate, you know, to have had the opportunity to do this. I'm very grateful that Mr. LeBlanc like opened his house and just like opened his mind, just like shared all the stuff he shared with me because, you know, it's like, he could have just said no.
My house is the purple house.
Any other questions?
How did you first become familiar with his music?
Music?
With his music?
I came to New Orleans in 2012 to visit, and I went around, you know, like on the places where, you know, so-called jazz was being played, and everywhere I went, you wouldn't see black folk playing jazz, you know, it's like, and the guitar in itself, you know, is an instrument that was traditionally a black instrument, you know, like going from like the beginning of, at least in the United States, you know, the beginning of like the end of the 1800s, all the way up to just like when you start having like white folk playing the guitar too, and the pop music round. It's like all I've researched before I came to New Orleans like led me to like the history of blues guitar, history of jazz guitar, and then you have the banjo, and all the musicians that are cast to be those musicians were black folk. I come to New Orleans, which is the cradle of jazz, you know, the birthplace of jazz, and all I see is like the majority white musicians on the bandstands, and whenever there was a guitarist, the guitarist was not black. So I went to one gig, and I saw the one black guitarist that kind of looked like me because he had like long dreads, black guys, like, So that dude, so just saw him play, you know, just like tried to like search whether or not, you know, what was his name. It's like just search a little bit. Okay, it's like just playing like next place, that place is gonna be like the next day. So I went to the next place and the next day and got to talk to him after I listened to some of his stuff on YouTube. You know, and then I looked his biography as well, and it's like he's a music educator, he's like, considered himself a griot, like a storyteller, like anthropologist, musicologist, and it's like kind of the path that I was trying to take. So why not contact him again and just like try to study it, and, you know, eventually. That was the plan. I went back to Brazil, wrote a grant, but like didn't get it.
You know, sometimes we don't really have control over the way things happen. I think this is your calling. You know, like you were like drawn. We were drawn to do this. I mentioned this young lady earlier who did the wiki page on me. I was touring with Preservation Hall, and we were going to Canada, and they were having some kind of strike where they weren't putting the gas in the airplanes. So we all had to take different airplanes to get to this festival that we were going to in Canada. I get on the plane and I sit down, and the guy comes to say, "You're in my seat." I'm like, "No, it's in," and yes, it is your seat. So I get up and find my seat, and there's this young lady sitting there, and she had some short locks at the time. I was like, "I guess you're my travel companion." And we started talking. I said, "My name is Carl." She said, "Oh, my name is Carla." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I said, "Where you from?" She said, "Oh, I'm from Baton Rouge, but I grew up in New Orleans." I said, "Well, I'm from New Orleans, you know." Then we talking, where you coming from? I'm coming from Chicago because I just took a dance class, but I found out about this musician named Sun Ra. You ever heard of Sun Ra? I said, "Yeah, I used to play with Sun Ra, you know, for 8 years." And you know, and as we're talking, she's saying, well, the banjo I found out is a African instrument. I said, "That's a banjo up over your head now. I just put over," you know. So like it was like everything she had been doing and learning over the past year or so was preparing her to meet me. And the funny part is, the only reason she was on the plane, the reason I was on the plane is because my plane got canceled. They put me on another one. She had fallen asleep at the gate and missed her flight, right? So that's why she was on this plane and sitting right next to me, and we just like, so people get drawn to each other by some greater forces sometimes. And I have a feeling that this is like part of that, you know, like how we came together, and he keeps saying a mentor and teacher, and you know, historically, when you wanted to learn a craft, you would go and apprentice with a master. You know, you would go and you wanted to be a carpenter, you would go with a master carpenter, and he would say, "Look, go get the saw," and you would just do everything. And so that is kind of far from what we're doing, because I'm just sharing what I would share as you come around us. What you doing? Look, oh, I'm doing this. I'm working on this today, you know, and I just show him like that. It's not like he's ever had to pay me for a lesson or anything, and he says he learns every time he comes around me, which I find that hard to believe, because he's probably forgotten more than I know, you know. But yeah, I think it's more cosmic than we know.
Any more questions?
Thank you both. I'm so grateful I came into this room this afternoon. I learned so much. I have a question about I was thinking about the universities, the black universities in New Orleans that you talked about, and the kind of long arc of these materials that you've created. I mean, they can live digitally in various ways, but have you thought about finding an archive in the city that will take them? And might one of those institutions have an archive where you can sort of start to
Jazz
open
and
that
Heritage
up?
Foundation, which is one of the
Yeah.
funders of the project, they use whatever that's like, if you have a measurable product out of the out of whatever money they give you, they put that on their archive. You know, but you also have the New Orleans Historical Collection. That's something. They have the Hogan Archive, which is like the jazz archive here at Tulane. And I've been sending these CDs to every single library I know. I'm still in the process of bringing like some to like Washington D.C. Also have it there. Trying to have his music played in the radios around the country, and like in Japan and Korea and like in Latin America and in Europe. It's just like whatever I get an opportunity to just like, hey, you know, because in the year of not the year, the era of like easy access to technology, it's really hard for you as an independent artist to have your stuff put out if you don't have a manager. And it's like, I don't have a manager, he doesn't have a manager, and I'm like pushing my music and his music in whatever ways I can, and also getting the music to be kind of like on a lot of places.
There's a book called The Business of Music, and when I did my first CD, I don't have a copy of that, Bebop, I was getting the music published, and they said, you can form your own publishing company for like $20. And I'm like, okay, great. I made my own publishing. From then on, all my music is on Renewal Publishing Company. But it was a couple of decades later that I read this book, The Business of Music, and they broke down the role of each person in the whole marketing scheme of it. And they said that the publisher, the definition is that his job is to exploit the artist's music. Now, that not in a negative sense. He's supposed to take my song to Beyonce and see if he can get her, see if he can get it in a Gillette commercial, see if he can get my song everywhere. He's supposed to exploit my song, which made me realize I have a publishing company, but I haven't been going around doing a job. I'm a publisher, which made me realize, wow, well, I'm a band leader, I'm the equipment man, I'm the engineer, I'm an arranger. What would have happened if I had hired a professional arranger and a professional sound man and everything? My whole career would have been different, but I was just thinking about how many ways the money had to be split up, and but I think that you should get a manager and a publisher, and the story I told just now, I hope you got a lesson from that.
You know, all the editing, you know, it's just like, I go on YouTube, like, how do you put like words behind a subject? Okay, how you put words behind like YouTube, and I have all like the Photoshop and stuff. Okay, so that's how you put the words behind the subject. So I made this, like, I took the photos. I did the like, I was the videographer. I was like the video editor and all that. This is like, do as it goes. You know, that's any more questions?
Just because you could scramble an egg don't make you a chef.
Like I said, I'm not directed. You know, and like still, you know, like all these things, plus the PhD program, plus, you know, like my teaching gig and playing gigs and just like, and, you know, but trying to make it possible, and just like everyone's like, hey Carl, how you doing? And it's like, oh, I'm good, man. My chickens and lay eggs. Oh, I'm there. I just learned how to like manage the tractor. Like just like leveling the land with the tractor. Just like it's been great, you know. So if you don't have any more questions, thank you so much. If you want to get in contact, you know, like, as his book comes out and as more music comes out, you can email us, get our information like on social media.
You want to check out that wiki page.
If you wanna buy a CD and support his cause and his farm, you know, he's selling CDs, a couple CDs.